Hello, I'm Cyril Memoir and welcome to my new player's guide for Yi Xian. In this video, I will be introducing the Cloud Spirit Sword Sect, its characters, and some basic strategies you can employ to start winning games. The Cloud Spirit Sword Sect is a sect used to introduce you to the game and is the most straightforward on the surface. The sect is divided into roughly 4 mechanics with various degrees of overlap. On Tier 1, the faction has access to cards from 3 categories: Cloud Swords, Sword Intent, and Spirit Swords. Cloud Swords have an additional Cloud Hit effect that only applies if they are played after a Cloud Sword card. Cloud Sword boards will generally be very heavy on Cloud Swords to maximize the activation of these Cloud Hits. Sword Intent increases the damage of every hit by the next attack you play. If you gain 3 Sword Intent and then play a level 1 Wind Sword, your Wind Sword will deal 6 damage twice, for a total of 12. Then you will lose your Sword Intent. Lastly, Spirit Swords cost Chi to deal damage, with increasing costs and scaling becoming available on higher tiers. Tier 2 introduces the 2 other mechanics of the sect: Sword Formations and Unrestrained Swords. Sword Formations center around gaining defense and converting that into damage, while Unrestrained Swords grow in power for every Unrestrained Sword you play. Your early game boards will generally fall into one of 2 buckets: Sword Intent or Cloud Sword. For Sword Intent, a combination of Sword Slash, Sword Defense, a Chi Generator, Flying Fang Sword, and Thunder Sword or Wind Sword can let you quickly defeat your enemies. Just be careful to play your Sword Slash first. Don't waste your Sword Intent. As you break through, you can replace the multi-hits with Tri-Peak Swords and Float Cloud Chaos Swords, or transition towards a different strategy while trimming the Sword Intent engine. For Cloud Swords, starting with a Touch Sky, then Touch Earth and Fletch creates a consistent board of offense and defense that is easy to expand with additional Cloud Sword cards. This board sets you up to play Cloud Swords all game, but there are multiple Cloud Sword cards on Tier 3 that produce Chi, which can let you branch out of the strategy. Lastly, Tier 1 Sword Set cards are very high in synergy. Sometimes it can be worth not immediately breaking through to Tier 2 to hunt for more upgrades on Tier 1. Cloud Sword Sect has a variety of options with various degrees of modularity. While seemingly straightforward, as you play more you'll find a surprising amount of overlap between mechanics. The most straightforward build for the sect. The easiest way into this strategy is unsurprisingly to have a Cloud Sword start in your early game. The key cards for this strategy are Flash Moon and Moonshade on Tier 4, allowing you to chase through multi-hitting cards while scaling up your damage with Attack Up. Once you have established your early game, save exchanges till Tier 4 and roll down until you have at least one of each. There are several defensive tools to buy time while scaling, with Step Lightly on Tier 5 being a standout, but Cloud Sword Soft Heart and the Rule of Cloud Immortal Fate also bolster the strategy. Tier 5 also offers Dragon Rune, the best Cloud Sword starter in the game. And while it's not a Cloud Sword, Flying Shade Spirit Sword is a powerful multi-hit that also opens up access to Chi cards like Flow Cloud Chaos Sword. As a natural extension of the Tier 1 board, Sword Intent is all about building up a high amount of Sword Intent and defeating opponents in a single attack. Flying Fang Sword is a Tier 1 card that is irreplaceable in this strategy all the way till Tier 5. Not having one makes pursuing the strategy quite difficult. As you break through to Tier 4 and 5, incorporating the Chi generating Sword Intent cards Contemplate Spirit's Rhythm and Cloud Dance Rhythm will allow you to squeeze more Sword Intent in before your big attack. It can be worth spending rolls on 3 or 4 to try to find Tri-Peak Sword or Flow Cloud Chaos Sword to improve the output of your attacks. Sword Intent Surge is a key card of this strategy that allows it to handle the inflated HP pools of characters in the late game. Flying Shade Spirit Sword is the best multi-hit attack in the game, and the Chi it generates can let you follow up with a Dharma Spirit Sword if your first attack does not get the job done. The Sword Intent package is usually quite small, only 4 to 5 cards, allowing you to fit in defensive chases such as Rule Sky Formation or defensive side job cards. Unrestrained Sword is a simple and beloved strategy that does not come online until Tier 4. Unrestrained Sword 2 is the heart and soul of the Unrestrained deck, with a high correlation between the number drawn and the strength of the deck. Combining Unrestrained Sword 2 with even a small amount of attack up can result in a board that scales with shocking speed, though its slow ramp up does leave it vulnerable. Finding multiple copies of 2 is essential, so stockpiling some rolls till Tier 4 is a must. The Formation Master side job offers Heavenly Spirit Forsage Formation to bolster the deck's damage, while also giving access to Meru Formation, which reduces the amount of Unrestrained cards needed to make the deck work. On Tier 5, Unrestrained Sword 0 provides a deck with a high degree of sustain to outlast opponents who would try to compete with the deck's scaling. The Immortal Fate Mad Obsession draws Unrestrained cards, but the Tier 4 and 5 versions also count Unrestrained cards as having been played at an additional time, dramatically speeding up the deck when taken. Spirit Swords and the Sword formations go somewhat hand in hand as several of their cards overlap. The most straightforward application for these decks is to generate a high amount of chi and then defeat the opponents with a single Dharma Spirit Sword. A more grindy deck can be played by taking advantage of scaling chi generators such as Spirit Gather Siddharma to take advantage of powerful chases afforded by the tier 3 and 4 Spirit Swords Rook and Giant Quen. Raven Spirit Sword and Egret Spirit Sword offer ways to improve your survivability and damage while you're chasing through your board. Most of the power players for this board are on tiers 4 and 3, which is around the time that an early Sword Intent board begins to falter. Rolling on 4 to augment your Sword Intent board, then subbing out cards piece by piece as you find better ones is the key to success. On tier 5, Dharma Spirit Sword is the strongest finisher in the game, and sometimes finding one copy enough is to stop being a scaling board and turning into a fast win board. This kind of strategy is very modular, and finding the right lines can be very difficult at first. Mui Feng is the hero of the tutorial and the first character you'll have unlocked. Mui Feng is a flexible and powerful character with a bevy of powerful tools. His tier 1, Shifter's Cloud, gives you one free exchange every turn. Don't forget to use it. When you are going to break through, remember to break through, then use your free exchange for a potential look at a higher tier card. His tier 2 Sword and Sheath looks innocuous, but makes Yi Xian extremely resilient when he's not attacking. This ability does not do much with early Cloud Sword boards, which are mostly attacks, but shines in Sword Intent boards. Endurance's Cloud Sea allows Yi Xian to ignore the requirements for cloud hits. This offers a lot of flexibility even in Cloud Sword boards, as not needing to play a starter or weave in defensive cards is of excellent utility. Shade of Cloud lets you survive on one destiny when you would otherwise be eliminated and provides some extra exchanges. It's a safe pick. Finally, Spring Caustic is never bad as a copy of your best card, but it can be low impact if you don't have a high impact card to upgrade. This can definitely be skipped if you're still finding your build on tier 5 and would rather try to draw cards to augment your board. Yi Xian is an extremely powerful character who gets stronger as she is defeated. Her boards often come together when she's low on destiny, meaning she's rarely left with no options. Her starting ability, Bloodline Potential, draws a card for every 18 destiny lost, resulting in 4 to 5 cards drawn in most games. This makes Yi Xian faster and faster as the games go on. Fire Flame Blade is one of the strongest tier 2 fates in the game, enabling Yi Xian to freely play cards like Flying Fang Sword, Inspiration Sword, and Dragon Room without fear of the opponent's defense. Her tier 3 Drift Ice Blade provides a small amount of defense, and while it can be very powerful on late game Unrestrained or Cloud Sword boards, it is not essential and overall is a little bit underwhelming. Cloud Sword Avalanche is a high payoff card for committing to Cloud Sword. On tier 4 and with a full board of Cloud Swords, this starts at approximately 30 damage and then goes up from there. This can be replaced on tier 5 with enough attack up and multi-hits, but leaning on defensive Cloud Swords while this scales is still a viable option. Finally, Unrestrained Sword Flame Dance is Yi Xian's claim to the Unrestrained throne. This single-handedly elevates Unrestrained to playability, but offers nothing to any other strategy. As such, exercise restraint before picking it. The Dragonling Long Yao is the fastest character in the game on tier 1 and can compete for speed with the rest of the cast for the entire game. Inheritance of Dragonling starts Long Yao with a whopping 7 card hand, often making the first 2 fights trivial before opponents can catch up. Remember that you will draw 2 more cards on tier 5 when planning your breakthroughs. Her Coral Sword offers good utility by ensuring your Sword Intent cards hit their mark early and allowing you to craft boards that function through any amount of defense. This also lets Long Yao play a very unique sword formation board with the Musician card Illusion Tune. Dragon Scales is an odd immortal fate. You will not lose 18 destiny for losing a fight until sometime after round 7, meaning you won't know for sure if you will be able to take advantage of this when you first pick it up. If your destiny is still high when you break through to tier 3, then this is decent, otherwise you can skip it. Cloud Sword Praerain is a solid Cloud Sword card for tier 4, and if you're playing the strategy then it is a good pickup. This does drop off as you approach tier 5, so don't stay married to it, but it will definitely carry you through your tier 4. Lastly, Sky Delicate Bracelets can single-handedly shut down some strategies, but is hard to find a home for. If your board can make chi, it's worth considering, and it is a centerpiece of a unique painter board that only Long Yao can play. Yi Xian's resident Kaka Lin Xiaoyue has some of the oddest game plans of the sect. Her most common boards are Sword Intent and Cloud Sword boards that end in a big Dharma finisher. Curiosity will draw you one of 5 unique cat cards the first 9 times you lose your last exchange. It is best to use all your rolls every turn until you have used all 9 stacks. The most important cat card is Catnip, which can be used to upgrade her other unique cards or another level 1 card. Her tier 2 Catpaw is a good utility card that can serve as a Cloud Sword starter or Sword Intent payoff, and you will usually find a home for it. Cat's Bless is one of the most infuriating Immortal Fates in the game. It will feel like it never does anything for you, but always procs for your opponent. It represents around 25 to 30% extra destiny, so if that looks appealing, then it is worth taking. Just be willing to roll with the dice. Her tier 4 Cat Chaos Sword requires you to hold cards in your hand, i.e. not put them on your board, to turn it into a 5-hit attack. With a Catnip, it upgrades into a 6-hit attack, making it one of the best Sword Intent payoffs in the game. Just remember to make sure it is the only card with cat in its name when you absorb your Catnip. Otherwise, you can sometimes upgrade the wrong card. Her final Immortal Fate, Lithe as a Cat, turns every Cloud Sword card into a Chi generator. When combined with the Cloud Sword Chasers, Cloud Sword Pierce the Star, and Cloud Sword Spirit Coercion, this can translate into a huge amount of chi for a very fast Dharma Spirit Sword finishing blow. Yi Xian begins with a simple sword that deals 6 damage, that increases in damage every turn. All of his Immortal Fates offer ways to customize this sword. Typically, your game plan will revolve around specific combinations of these fates. His basic ability Swordsmith increases the damage of the Sword Embryo by 1 every turn. It's underwhelming early, but turns into a big hitter in the late game. His tier 2 Blade Forging can give your sword some extra damage or sacrifice damage for defense. The attack upgrade is generally better and contributes to Yi Xian's very high damage potential. Sword Pattern Carving can turn the sword into a Sword Intent Provider or Sword Intent Payoff with an extra attack. The 1 stack of attack up is generally the weakest option, but it still offers good utility in a Cloud Sword package. The tier 4 Chi Forging offers the biggest split in the Immortal Fate options. Gaining 3 defense per Chi is strong enough that some strategies eschew every upgrade for the sword except this one. Gaining 2 extra attacks at the cost of Chi makes the sword a mighty Sword Intent payoff, while the extra 2 Chi provides improved reach as part of Spirit Sword boards. Finally, Quench of Swordheart offers 3 great options for 3 different strategies. The Cloud Sword option is the most flexible, but the Unrestrained one is one of the few ways to build a strong Unrestrained board in the late game. As a last note, the sword cannot be absorbed until tier 5. At that point, once it is exchanged, you will draw cards based on the Immortal Fates you took.